This is the Amp Hour, recorded June 15th, 2011, episode number 47, the Mothership Manifesto. Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Dave Jones from the EEV blog.
And this is Jeff Kaiser from MightyOhm.com.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
Dave. Pretty good.
There's no Chris this week.
Yeah.
He mumbled something about Vegas and jumped on a plane. I don't know. That's all we know. So he's in Vegas. He has tweeted there that he's losing his money or maybe even winning.
He's quite the man of mystery now. He's maybe he's on some caper or something that he can't tell us about.
Possibly. Well, I guess we'll find out when he gets back. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us. You're our third wheel here at the Amp Hour. Not in a bad third wheel kind of way, but
well,
you always step up to the plate. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, in true Amp Hour style, I think I heard about this, what was it? It wasn't last night. It actually was, I think, the night before. So I actually had a pretty good 2 days, or almost maybe 1.5 days notice. But
right.
Yeah.
It turns out you were on a plane yesterday. So
yeah,
we couldn't
was
record
traveling
yesterday.
too. Yep, we couldn't record yesterday, and finally got around to it today. But hopefully people haven't been waiting on the edge of their seats too much.
Yes, and by the way, you are very popular. Every time we have you on, people say, more Jeff.
I don't know what they're thinking.
Well, you have got that lovely radio voice, as opposed to my nasally, whiny Australian accent and Chris's twang there, as I call it. I don't know. What's it called in the US?
It would be a twang, but I don't think there's a Cleveland twang.
Right.
I don't think there's. I'm the one that's supposed to have the twang. Living in Texas,
okay.
I'm
Right.
probably supposed to have some kind of an accent, but I'm pretty much a Californian at this point. So, yeah, I guess I'm the one that's probably got the Valley Girl accent, but yeah.
Right. Is that what it's called? The Valley Girl?
Yeah. Well, hopefully guys don't have the Valley Girl accent, I guess.
Right. Well, it's you never know these days. Anyway, let's jump straight into some news. We've got some very sad news, unfortunately. Somebody who we've talked about many times on the Amp Hour here, because he's one of Chris's heroes and one of our heroes as well. I'm sure he's one of yours as well. Jim Williams, unfortunately, has passed away suddenly. Terrible news.
Too bad. Yeah.
Yes, and
that's a big loss. Big loss for the industry.
For the analog industry. And if you've ever read linear technology application notes, data sheets, it's full of Jim Williams.
Yep, that's right.
Stuff.
Yeah, actually, my favorite is there's an application note. I think it's something like DC to DC converters for poets.
Right.
Is the name of it, and I think it's that application note that the last page says something like, they wouldn't let me leave this page blank, and it has a drawing of like a sailboat and an ocean and a whale.
Brilliant. They always let Jim. Yeah, they always gave him liberty to sort of do stuff like that, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it seemed like he had a long leash, and I would have loved to have worked with him, because I've seen pictures of his workspace, and
it's like, famous, is it not?
It is amazing. I mean, even the picture I'm looking at right now, the EE Times story, shows him, and I think his bench is like, it looks like a landfill. It's like an electronic landfill.
It's hilarious.
Like,
it's just covered in parts, literally. Like I don't think he actually believes in component drawers. All the components are just literally like inches deep on his bench there. It's just incredible. And how would you move those power supplies he's got? I don't think he's moved anything in 30 years. It's all just sat there, and the components have built up around the equipment on the bench. It's just hilarious.
It's like an electronic soil.
Right.
It's a very fertile grounds for new inventions. Yeah, it is pretty amazing. I've got one of his books sitting on my shelf. I think it's the Personalities book, Analog Circuit Design, and I've skimmed through it a couple times. It's been on my list of things to read, and it's one of these books that's got anecdotes, and I really, really like hearing about these guys, in the 60s and 70s when they were holed up in their labs, and you get to hear all these stories. And if you think about the test equipment that they were working with and the conditions that they had, and they didn't have good simulators.
Well, they didn't have simulators, they didn't have computers, they didn't have calculators even. Back that something really we take for granted, like a pocket calculator. They're still using slide rules.
Yep. These are like the cowboys of the electronics industry. Yeah, totally Absolutely. Amazing.
And that's probably where all the electronics rules of thumb and just winging it, actually wetting your finger and just all of the intuition type stuff. Because doing electronics calculations without a calculator is quite hard. So I think that's where a lot of, all of the rules of thumb came from and things like that, because you don't want to sit down and have to get out your slide rule and do calculate some stuff just to choose a resistor value. No, you just pick one up off your bench and stick it in there. Does it work? Well, yeah, I know the behavior. It's, I need to tweak it a bit in this direction or this direction. And
yeah, these guys inspire me to get like an old Tektronix analog oscilloscope. It's like that's what the tools that they had. They didn't have fancy digitizing oscilloscopes or anything like that. They just had really crude test equipment, and yet they were able to make state-of-the-art products and designs. And it's just I'm totally amazed by what these guys were able to accomplish.
Yeah, it's just remarkable, and that's very sad because I don't believe he was ill. Anyway, I don't know the details of his passing, but it was sudden, apparently. So, and we're only just talking about him, 4 or 5 episodes back, I think. So,
I don't know how old he was, but I mean, I saw some videos of him fairly recently, so I was really surprised, actually.
Yeah, he's been doing quite a bit. I think he was going to that analog reunion thing that they have every year or even every month. I think there's quite a few people who sort of, meet up at the local pub, all these old analog designers. If you're in the know and where they meet up, you can get in the same room as, 20 of the world's most famous analog IC designers.
And this is in Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's a lot of famous people, I think, in the analog industry that are in that area. And it'd be interesting just to be a fly on the wall and to listen to what these guys talk about.
Speaking of some of the old timers, Win Hill, the famous author of The Art of Electronics. It's been talked about on the EEV blog forum. One of the EEV blog forum members actually contacted Win Hill directly and asked him when the 3rd edition of the book is coming out. And yes,
I will believe that when I see it.
Right, when the cows come home, when the fat lady sings.
They've been talking about that for years and years and years. I mean,
it is the Duke Nukem of the electronics world. If you haven't heard, that is also news. Duke Nukem Forever is coming out, the famous video game. I spent many hours in my youth playing Duke Nukem. I'm not sure about yourself, but...
I didn't have a PC at that time, so I was always an Amiga user, and we didn't have anything like that on the Amiga. I missed out on the whole Castle Wolfenstein, Duke Nukem. Yep. I came on board around the time that Quake came around.
Right,
that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that was way past it. But the Amiga, the Commodore Amiga, was quite a cultish
it was,
thing, wasn't it?
I didn't really know much about it, but my father had bought a computer for the family, and it was the family computer. Right. This was probably in the early 90s, and I had no money. I was a student. I just hung on to it. And by the time I stopped using it, I think I was one of the few people that was actually using it to go online on the internet. And I had Mosaic. I had TCP/IP running on it and the whole thing. And it's funny. It's actually I was just this week I was looking at a website. Somebody has created a complete Amiga computer in an FPGA, sort of like Jerry Ellsworth's Commodore 64. joystick, the DTV thing. Well, somebody's done that for the Amiga, and I think there's a video on FPGAarcade.com, and that kind of makes me a little bit nostalgic.
Yeah,
I've definitely got a lot of good memories of playing games and demos and things like that on the Amiga, and you don't see that kind of stuff anymore.
No,
as much.
You don't. It's all too. They spend $20 million is like the average budget for a video game these days. It's just. It's crazy. They get famous actors in and they act it out on the green screen, and it's just, it's a movie production. And, well, what about the gameplay? That's all I want.
I think it used to be where like one guy could sit down and write a video game, right? There's stories about these guys, hotshot kid programmers. They go stay up all night for a weekend and they write a game, and I think that's how a lot of these games for the Amiga and the demos, and for anybody that doesn't know, demos were I don't know how you would describe it. It was like a demonstration of the capabilities of a vintage computer. It wasn't vintage at the time.
No, that's right.
It was showing, graphics, it was graphics and music, and it would show, a coder or a programmer would use it to show that he was the best programmer because he could make the coolest, 5-minute demo that did all these. It was always like a rotating cube or
exactly. Yeah, rotating 3D stuff was very big. It required mathematical computation and. Floating point. Ooh,
a lot of these machines didn't have floating point.
No, it had to be done in software.
Lookup tables.
So they didn't actually have dedicated floating point chips. I can remember buying a floating point coprocessor chip and plugging it in, and wow, everything goes so much quicker.
Yeah, right.
Oh, it's just terrific. But I don't know about all this FPGA stuff. It's just not the same. I want to know that my circuit's running on old-fashioned dedicated chips. It's not just about the gameplay for me. Being an electronics guy, I like knowing that it's running on old hardware, individual chips.
I agree with you to a point. I am all for the old hardware and seeing old games. I've got a collection of Commodore 64 stuff, and I really enjoy booting up the old Commodore 64. But the thing that you learn if you do this is that computers used to be really, really, really slow.
Oh yes,
and so it's cool for about 5 minutes, and then you realize. Wouldn't it be cool if I could just download any program I wanted and run it on this computer? And for the Commodore 64, you've got to write it to a floppy, and that takes literally 10 or 20 minutes to write it to a floppy, and then you've got to load it in. And of course, the original hardware is unreliable, and the floppy drives are crap. So then you think, well, if you do it on the FPGA, you can put an SD card with all your programs in there. And I have to admit, using the emulated, or it's not even emulated, it's I don't even know what the word for that is, but the FPGA implementation, they get some little frills that I think make it a little bit nicer.
I have to agree there as well. Although there's a lot of people who, as you said, loading stuff onto floppy drives and things that, even tape, the old-fashioned tape drive. That's really tiresome, troublesome. It's hard to get those things anymore, to actually buy those discs and to still be reliable. So there's a lot of people out there who keep the traditional actual processing hardware, but then they might use an SD card, like they actually build an SD card interface so they can put 1,000 games into the thing, but it still runs on the traditional processor. And
I personally like it both ways. I like to see if I was to buy a stand-up arcade game, I would want to get the original hardware because that's just cool.
You would?
Because
you see, I'm the opposite. Strangely, when it comes to computers, I'm different. But arcade games, I have no problems with getting the MAME console, or not MAME, which is the software emulation, but the what's the Jamma? The Jamma processing console.
Sure.
That has 50 different games on it, so I've got no problems with that. I've been thinking about building my own for a while, one of those cocktail arcade machines.
Yeah, to each his own. I think that there's benefits to both ways of doing it. I think I definitely can understand the appeal of having that old hardware. It's just the smell and the feel of it, and the perfect cycle to cycle. Because a lot of the emulators are not perfect, right? You lose. Yeah, something.
Well, that's why the Jamma one is different. The MAME emulator is that's not as perfect as it could be because it's an emulator, whereas the Jamma thing is actually the original hardware just recreated on an FPGA or something.
So the Jamma boards, I'm not familiar with this. So the Jamma boards have
Jamma is the interface, I believe. Jamma was like the plug-in, like an S100 type plug-in interface. Don't quote, I could be talking out my ass here, but I believe it's the interface that at one point you could buy your arcade console and you could, if it was Jamma compatible, you could plug in any game card you wanted. That came in the Jamma format. So these new Jamma, you can buy the Jamma board and it has an FPGA on there and it's got 50 games programmed into it. It is actually, they actually went through and emulated it gate by gate.
So this is kind of like your console, like a Nintendo, where you plug in a cartridge, and in this case, the cartridge is the Jamma thing, and it's got 50 games on it.
Yes, the Jamma was the interface, which had like a processing board, then it had a game board or something like that. Wow. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, Jamma is better than the MAME. MAME you can run on your PC. You can just download it, and you can run all the old, 1,000 different arcade games on your normal PC. So, but Jamma's different. Jamma's actually a physical hardware implementation of the original hardware arcade console. So,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. My hat's off to the people who do that, to reverse engineer the arcade consoles, gate by gate, and it's just...
Yep, I was looking at this, the FPGA arcade site just the other night, and there was a picture of somebody who was reverse engineering, I think it was the Amiga chipset, and there's a picture of like a motherboard with a logic analyzer connected to it, and there's about 1 million little wires.
Right.
It's like he's looking at a couple 16 or 32-bit interfaces, and just the cables that he has to his logic analyzer is amazing.
Those guys just stay up all night, just like they're plugged into the Matrix, and they're just going for it. That's just I love it.
I think it's pretty cool. Yeah,
it is.
It's pretty cool.
And we got there from... That was a bit of a non sequitur from the art of electronics.
Well, yeah. Back to the art of electronics. Like I said before, they've been talking about a third edition. It's been on Wikipedia for a couple years now. Yeah. I heard about it before that, even. So I've probably heard about these rumors 3 years ago. But
I've heard about it about 10 years ago. It was talked about on the Usenet news group where Win Hill actually frequents. He's actually
so what do you think that they'll change?
He has actually he told this user very specific things, which I've heard before as well. In that it will be essentially a new, fully revised book. As in, it'll have pretty much all new content. It'll have extended chapters. So there'll be Chapter 5, which might be op amps or something, and then there'll be Chapter 5X, which will be all the advanced, secret stuff, of using op amps. So that sounds very exciting. So it'll have all these extended chapters. And Win Hill says that really you've got to keep both books. It won't be a replacement for the second edition, really.
I see.
It's got so much new content that they have to drop a lot of stuff from the second edition.
I was telling this to someone recently. The Art of Electronics, for me, is a wonderful reference book. I've got it on my shelf. I've had a copy since I was in high school. But it's also a very humbling book because I've taken several analog design classes. I've got a degree in electrical engineering, and some of the circuits that are in that book, they're good circuits, bad circuits example.
Yep.
I could stare at those for hours.
Yep, I know.
So it makes you really feel like you don't know anything, because you look at this book and here's these guys that, they really know what they're talking about whenever it comes to analog circuit design, and I go in there and it makes me feel like I don't know anything. It's really a very humbling experience.
I totally agree. And if you want more detail, here it is. 20 chapters in all. The second edition had 15 chapters. There's 2 chapters with advanced transistor stuff, 3 on FETs, advanced JFET info.
JFETs?
Sorry.
They still make JFETs?
They still make JFETs. Actually, sorry, these are just the advanced chapters. So there will be advanced chapters on BJTs, JFETs, MOSFETs, advanced op-amps, and advanced power stuff as well.
So I guess the real question I have is, are they going to talk about microcontrollers?
Yes, exactly. Well, I always found that a bit weird that they had, I think they had like the Z80 in there. No, the 6502. I always found that why? Why?
Yeah. Yeah, I always thought that was interesting too, but the examples that are in the book are so ancient. I mean, and it's because the book is an old book, right?
But 1989, I think it was first published.
The field of electronics, I mean, transistors haven't changed a whole lot. They've just gotten better. But the state of integrating computers into your electronic equipment has completely changed. And that to me is the one thing that makes that book feel like an old book.
It does. I totally agree. Yeah, so I think that's what they're saying. Well, there will be digital stuff here. There'll be detailed info, digital in the real world, but they don't say anything about microcontrollers, unfortunately. But they should drop all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, nobody's using a 68,000 series CPU.
No, exactly.
With a separate RAM
basic.
Chip.
Teach basic digital gates, and Boolean logic and Carnot maps and all that sort of stuff. But
I mean, gosh, it's probably even getting hard to find like 74,000 series logic now, right? Like,
oh no, you can still get it. Still very popular. Many of the manufacturers still make it.
That's good to hear.
There's a market out there for it, so otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. I mean, they wouldn't be making it for, the sake of nostalgia.
Well, they certainly have made a lot of it.
Exactly.
Even if they stop making it, it'll probably take a while for the world to use up the stores of LS series logic.
Yep. But, and in fact, it has. I mean, they've branched out so much in that area. You can get all these bizarre logic families now. BCX or something. And they're in some little tiny chip scale package, and they've got like one gate or something like that, just in one package, which is handy because often, in your circuit, you just need one gate. Oh, I don't want to have to use a 7400 with 4 gates in it.
Yeah.
I just want that one gate in a tiny package. And
you have to have 4 gates. You have the one that you use, and then there's the 3 that start oscillating at some weird time.
Right, because you forgot to tie them. Yeah.
Those are important.
Right. Oh, I love it. Anyway, Win Hill claims, the big news is that he claims he's working on it full-time, or both of them are working on it full-time, and their aim is to get it out by the end of the year.
Wow.
Sorry, I couldn't.
I'm working on a book, and I said that last year also.
Yeah. So, well, believe it if you will, but that's directly from Win Hill.
Well, cool. I'll definitely try to sign up for, to hear whenever that comes out, because I'll be one of the first customers.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to get one beforehand. Get a scoop.
Get a review copy.
Oh, that would, that'd be like getting Duke Nukem Forever before everyone else and playing it, So, Win Hill, if you're listening, please send me an advanced review copy. I'd love to have it.
I'll take one too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure Chris would too.
Yeah. Forget Chris.
Oh, that's great. Anyway, believe it if you will, but it is coming out. More news. Agilent if you've seen my blogs, I criticised the Agilent U1272A multimeter. I found a problem with it, and it turned out to be a fairly big problem with the rain switch. You would actually turn it and it'll lock up the meter and do all sorts of weird and wonderful things, and I put a video up demonstrating that, and within 3 weeks, which is the amazing thing for a company the size of Agilent. I mean, we're talking, the world's biggest testing equipment maker here, right?
Yeah.
They're a monolith. I mean, they're like the IBM of the... maybe that's a bit harsh, but, in terms of size, they're probably the IBM of the test equipment industry. And they actually responded within 3 weeks. They've fixed the problem. Turned out to be firmware. So they claim. I haven't tested this myself, but they've fixed the firmware and they've uploaded it to their site, and now they're offering every owner of that meter and the other one in the series a free USB programming cable, the optical interface programming cable to go with it to upgrade their firmware. They will ship that to you for free. So
wow.
I thought that was just an excellent response. It was perfect. They fixed it in record time, and they're giving, they could have just gone, well, if it's a problem for you, ship it back to us and we'll reprogram it for you. Yeah. But they just went, no, bugger it, we'll give everyone a free programming cable. And
actually, what they could have done is they first could have fully tested their product so that this didn't make it into the marketplace.
They could have, but yes.
Yeah, I say that's a great thing for them to have done, and to do it that quickly is pretty impressive. That means that the feedback that you gave them went straight to engineering. Went through 10 levels of bureaucrats. Straight to the engineer. There was some engineer who's probably listening to the show who said,
"That's right.
I know how to fix this. This is what we've got to do," and somehow convinced management that they were going to spend a little money to send out these USB cables. So that's great. That's great.
I know, it's fantastic. And I talked to Agilent directly on this, and they have told me that they're trying to figure out how to respond to this social media, this kind of new world of social media, which is what we are really these days. I hate, I don't necessarily like the term, but it's an all-encompassing kind of thing, and I guess it's what I do.
I'd say so. Yeah. It's a term frequently misused by marketing professionals.
It is indeed. You've got to be very wary of that.
Yeah. And so they're trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, and so they're trying to actively, respond to these sort of things, and keep doing that because that's the right way forward.
Yeah, that's
actually
great.
Admit that you make a mistake. We understand that these equipment's complex to develop, and it's going to have the occasional problem slip out. So
that's great. Yeah, it's really encouraging to hear. I've got a nice shiny Agilent oscilloscope on my bench here, and if I ever had a problem with it, I would hope that I would get the same response. But then again, maybe I'd have to create a video blog that has how many
8,000 or 9,000 followers.
That's right. But that's great. I think it's interesting. Companies are taking this approach now. I think maybe they realize how badly this can go if some guy comes along and complains about this feature, and then a few other people kind of gang up together and start talking crap about
and
the
it goes
company.
viral.
And it goes viral. That's what they're probably worried about. So they're trying to figure out how to nip this in the bud and just avoid it turning into a bigger problem. And if that results in the product being a better product, then I say that's great.
Absolutely.
That's one way to do
it. And that's a bouquet now for a brickbat for Fluke, who I mentioned in my video. They swept the GSM thing under the carpet. The problem with the GSM mobile phone next to the Fluke multimeter, it sends it haywire, and I've gotten no response out of them in 8 months or something. So there you go. That's the difference in corporate attitude to this kind of thing, I guess. So, yeah.
Well, we just have to keep working on Fluke.
Right, I think so. But, they're more elusive company, Fluke. They've wanted to do things like, can you review our latest product? Yeah, sure, but can we watch the video beforehand and vet it and put it through? No, go away.
Yeah.
But it's for your own good. We don't want any mistakes to slip out there. Bullshit. It's you just want to protect your ass. That's what it's all about. So, anyway, interesting. And,
very interesting.
Another follow-up from the other week. We goofed up, Chris and I goofed up, if you were listening to the episode, Jeff. We were talking about electric cars, and we totally goofed up the terminology. So
see, this is why you've got to have me on the show every week, because I could put this straight.
You're a car man, are you?
I know I'm not an expert, but I have taken a couple engines apart. I have put engines together. I know my crankshaft from my camshaft. I'll say that.
Right. Anyway, Malcolm Fade, he offered to take me in a Mitsubishi iMiev, or I think that's how you pronounce it. And it was great. I went last night. He came over, actually drove it into the lab, and a video will be forthcoming shortly. So I had an iMiev in my lab, which was fantastic.
Yeah, that's
lab
awesome.
/ garage, because my lab's not big enough. And the first thing he did when he walked in, he went, "That lab looks much bigger on video." Everyone says the same thing.
Yeah, that's funny. You know, I got a test ride in a Nissan Leaf a few weeks ago at the Maker Faire.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, yep. And that car is a pretty cool piece of kit.
Yep.
It's actually startlingly fast. And it's also almost completely silent,
yep.
Which is an interesting combination. But talk about cramming, every feature possible into an automobile.
Right.
I didn't even get the full tour, but it's got computer displays for everything. You could sit there punching buttons for an hour.
Right.
Just
well,
playing
that's
with
the difference to the Mitsubishi one. It had practically nothing. It's got a fuel gauge, it's got a speedo, and it's got a and it has a mileage meter to tell you how many miles you've got left before your tank runs out. Tank, I'm still using the old terminology, but your battery tank, I guess, runs out, and that's it. It does have like a big, heads up, like a big, huge touchscreen display, but that's not integrated with the car at all. Surprisingly, it's just the GPS and the radio. That's it. So I found that very disappointing. Whereas it sounds like your one, the one you went in, was all, whiz-bang fully integrated, which is what I was expecting. So, yeah, but I didn't get that in this one, so I was very disappointed. I just wanted lots of buttons to push, and, well, yeah, very disappointing. It was very basic. So the one you went in, the Leaf, that's fully electric? That doesn't have a petrol backup motor?
I think it, I should
like
know
the
these
Tesla.
things before I
not
say about
not
that.
the Tesla, the Volt.
It's 100% electric.
100%. Yeah.
So pretty cool. I don't know if I would go for, I'm a little bit of a, I don't know. I like old cars. I've got a thing for 1970s cars.
Nice.
And really, I don't know if I could ever replace my addiction to the gasoline engine with an electric
gasoline
car.
Engine and getting 1 mile to the gallon.
Yeah.
Right.
But I do think that electric cars, actually the perfect thing for me would probably be to have an electric car to, drive around town and go to work. And then have the pleasure car, the second
for
car.
cruising on Sundays.
That would probably be the best thing for the environment, at least. But until then, I'll continue to drive my 1972 car to all around every day.
Yeah, and I think that's really their prime use. They're pretty much designed for the 2-car family. The car you have your normal petrol car which you can go on holiday with, and then you have your daily commute car which can be fully electric. Now the new Volt. The new Chevrolet Volt. Sorry, I'm thinking Holden, because in Australia, General Motors is Holden, not Chevrolet.
Got it.
The Chevy Volt is a dual combination petrol electric car, and it's trying to be, both things. And I can understand the concept but I think most people will end up being lazy and just run it on petrol or gas. Sorry, gas. And I don't know. I think, like they'll buy it thinking, it's fully electric car, and then they just won't bother. They'll just find, it's a bit inconvenient. I'd just run it on petrol.
Yeah, and I could see that happening.
And
with the Leaf,
I think that's disappointing.
If you don't plug it in, you're not going anywhere, so you're forced to.
No, exactly. So it's a fully So I would only buy a fully electric one. So.
Can you imagine that being your excuse while you're late to work? I forgot to plug in my car.
Absolutely. That's all the more reason to get one.
Yeah, it's great. America has had a rough time since the EV1 was killed. I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary about
Who
that.
Killed the Electric Car?
Yeah, really
it's great.
Sad and kind of makes you angry about the state of the industry. And I guess now hopefully things are changing. I remember back whenever the EV1 came out, I was in college, I think. I test drove one while I was in college, and there was a guy, I think it's Phil Karn in San Diego, California. He was one of the first guys that figured out how to tap into the computer interface for the EV1.
Nice.
And he had this Palm Pilot application that would give him state of charge and all this like information that they were trying to keep from the consumer. And so before long, they had figured out how to plot, efficiency and all these things. And there were a bunch of these geeks that got a hold of him because obviously, the first electric car, it's all the geeks,
absolutely.
These are the guys that really ran and tried to get that car immediately after it came out. And so I still remember that back whenever the EV1 came out. So I wonder how long it is until somebody hacks the Leaf.
I'm sure it's not that long at all. I'm sure it's pretty easy. Well, it'd have some sort of standard interface, or at least it'll have an interface
I'm sure
plug
it's got
on
an
it.
OBD2 connector.
Yeah, exactly. One of those things. Yep.
Yeah.
And if you don't know the story behind the EV1, General Motors, they're deemed to be evil because they actually killed the car. I mean, they I don't know how many they made, a couple of hundred or 1,000.
Good question. Yeah, it was
anyway,
at least a few hundred. Yeah.
Yeah, they actually recalled them all, and they physically scrapped them. They actually crushed them. They did not want, they did not want this thing taking off.
I think they decided that the car was not profitable for them, and so they decided that rather than
why crush it? And you had big celebrities like Mel Gibson. I think at the time he's in the documentary. He was an owner of one, and he offered to pay him a shitload of money if he could keep the car, and they went, no, we're going to take it back from you, and we're going to crush it. Yeah. And that's what they did. And I think only one original one survives to this day.
There's at least one. I think there might be a few of them that ended up in the hands of universities, and I think there's one at a couple museums. And I actually, every once in a while, you'll see a news story that some university or museum brought one out and actually put it on the road, and then GM will come and yell at them for it and tell them they can't do that because apparently part of GM's the legal stuff surrounding the discontinuation of the car is that it is not allowed on public roads anymore, and they prohibit anybody that's got one from actually driving it. And so there was a story not that long ago, I think it was a university in the United States that had one, and they went joyriding around on it, and of course GM came in and said, nope, can't do that. Just adding insult to injury.
That is pathetic.
It is pathetic. Yeah, I agree. Of course, they've cited some safety concerns or something like that.
Oh, of course they do. Yeah, and they pull out every rule in the book and law. And I know, it's a joke. It's pathetic. If it was good enough to get on the road in the first place, it should be, I mean, here, you can build your own car from scratch and put it on the road.
You can actually do that here, too. You can do that here. It's just hard. You have to jump through a lot of hoops. Yeah.
Well, here you have to get an engineering thing, an engineering certificate to sign it off, So, but you can't be a Joe Bloggs engineer and just, I'm an EE, I'll sign off my own car. And, you've got to get some officially government-approved automotive engineer to sign it off as being roadworthy.
Right.
But apart from that, you can. Well, actually, no, probably not from scratch. I'm probably lying there. But if you take an old car and you modify it, it already meets certain safety standards. And things like that.
There's a long history of that in the United States, taking a chassis from some car and then chopping it up.
Okay,
and I think you're right. I think it's far easier if you start with something that once was on the road, because then and it's all just legal BS.
Exactly.
I mean, how safe can a 1930s Ford be? Right. It's
that's right. Trap. Yeah, I know. It's all full steel and none of this alloy and plastic rubbish. Unbelievable. Anyway, we've got some more news. It's a whole news show. Have you heard about the new Apple building their Mothership?
I heard somebody had alluded to this, but I don't know anything about it.
Right. Well, I'll post a link to a video where Steve Jobs, actually himself, God himself in person, actually turns up to a local council meeting in Cupertino. Am I pronouncing that?
Yep, Cupertino. Yep,
Cupertino. The local council. He turns up the council meeting and he gives this 1 hour or half hour presentation, like a PowerPoint kind of presentation about this new building that they want to build. Apple have purchased the old HP buildings, on not just one building, but a whole bunch of buildings on a huge, 1 square block or something like that. And they want to tear them all down and turn it into this mothership. One huge building that holds 12,000 people in one building. So it's just absolutely remarkable.
I'll say that sounds pretty cool.
and it looks, take a look at the photos. It's like a big ring. It's a circular building with a big, like a donut shape.
I'd love to see it, but,
yeah.
The first part makes me kind of sad, though. The HP buildings that they're knocking down to put this there.
Yeah,
HP was once a great company, and it's really sad. It's really sad that now Apple is knocking down their former headquarters in order to build, or not their headquarters, but a former, design center or whatever it was, in order to build their headquarters, their whatever this thing is. That's kind of sad. Whenever I lived in the South Bay in the Bay Area, I used to drive by a lot of abandoned HP buildings because there are a lot of them, and it always made me kind of sad.
Yeah, well, Steve mentioned that in the video, actually. In the presentation, he mentioned, he's got a lot... He used to work for HP, of course. Bill Hewlett, I think it was Bill Hewlett, personally gave Jobs his first job, no pun intended, at HP. So, he was, very well aware of the history of the whole thing and all that sort of stuff, so... Anyway, he wants to tear it all down and completely turn it into all green space. There's the building and there's green space. All the parking is underneath and the public transport infrastructure. And they want to power the thing from its own local power source as well and use the grid as a backup, not the other way around.
I wonder if this is the HP campus that was on Homestead near Lawrence Expressway, because if that is, I used to live right across the street from it.
Oh, right. Well, I'm not sure. There's a map of it. If you have a look at the images on the left-hand side there, this makes good radio. There's actually a bunch of photos from the slides, and you can actually see there's a map of where it was, and there's no street names in that. Anyway, if you watch the whole video, which I highly recommend, it's a good presentation, I think it's fantastic. It's going to be like one of the world's top buildings, one of the biggest, one or two, like the biggest or the second biggest single building in the world or something like that. And it's going to be, and it's going to have no straight glass on it. The whole thing completely curved glass. And as Steve Jobs said in his video presentation, he said that they're actually experts. Apple are experts in making the world's biggest curved glass for their stores. All of their Apple stores apparently use. I don't know. I've never walked into an Apple store, but apparently they're experts in using massive sheets of curved glass, and they're experts at actually making that sort of thing. So. Wow. The entire building will just be curved glass.
So, as someone who primarily works out of his garage, as I know you do,
yep.
I have to say, wow,
it's very impressive. And he said architectural students will come there. It'll be like the world's biggest. Got to see the Apple building. It's the penultimate design architecture thing. So. Yeah, it sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's all these, he promotes all the benefits of, keeping people local and all that sort of stuff. And that's why he went into council personally and tried to get them to actually approve it, which I'm sure they will. They're not going to say no to Apple. And he made the point that they are Apple are actually the biggest taxpayers in the local council. So so
they can do whatever they want.
Pretty much, yeah. But I've got to say this. Here's a little rant. Oh my! Not that I'm the least bit surprised, but watch the end of it. And then it's question time from the people on the council, the councillors, right? You would think these would be intelligent people. Oh, no. Fail. They ask the dumbest questions. It's like these people never even graduated primary school. I mean, what's it called in the US? It's called primary school here, which is before high school.
You mean elementary or high school? High school would be,
Elementary school would be the thing.
Grade school,
Yeah, great. Yeah, they just appear so dumb. They really do. It's embarrassing. How do these people? These people are running the council, and it's just. Anyway, I don't know. Not that I'm surprised. They're just politicians. So, anyway.
Well, pretty cool.
That's fantastic.
The pictures, new Apple. The artists' renditions are very impressive. So
they are very impressive.
If you're listening to this, go check them out. Pretty cool.
Go check out the video. It's worth the half-hour watch or 40 minutes or whatever it is. I watched it the other day, and it was nice. Steve Jobs is looking a little bit on the frail side, I won't. I won't speculate on his demise anytime soon, as most people have. There's whole websites, we've talked about that before, there's whole websites devoted to speculating when Steve Jobs is going to kick the bucket, because it's such an important event.
Well, it will be a profound event for the company, I'm sure. Yeah, so I'm sure there's a lot of people who are very, very, very concerned about that. People who have a financial interest in the company. Yeah, that's, no comment.
Yeah, and speaking of the other half of Apple, the WOS. I've got a rant. Bloody UBM Electronics, who ran the ESC show, I think it was, through their website, through EE Times or something like that. They actually promoted 2 weeks ago that they're going to put up the video of the WOS talking, giving his keynote fireside chat, they call it, at the thing. And they didn't put up the video. They said it'll be out on June 16th. It'll be a virtual event. Give me a break.
So they're basically trying to milk this keynote.
They're trying to milk this keynote, and look, it's coming soon on June 16th. Sign up for our virtual event, and you can watch the video.
Watch a few ads while you're waiting.
Yeah, while you're at it. Put the bloody video up on the website, please.
Yeah.
Nice. It's just pathetic. It really is. They try and have these virtual. People hate these virtual events. Just put the content up there and I can watch it anytime I want. I don't have to sign. I don't want to sign up to the damn thing.
Yep.
And, anyway, it's crazy. Don't like it at all. Unimpressed. EE Times, and they're famous for doing, their website is Pop-Up Ad City, really. Pop-Up Ad Central.
So that actually reminds me, I get the ESC people put out a magazine. It's actually a very thin magazine. It's hardly even, it's like a pamphlet almost.
Right.
I get it amongst, all the other trade journals that I've got. And the most recent issue, which I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not sure if it's like the June issue or what, but it just came in the mail a couple days ago. There's a section in the back. The name of the guy who does the column escapes me. Isn't it Gansel?
Jack Gansel, which is a hero of Chris.
Oh, okay. So his column, he always talks about kind of interesting little odds and ends in the industry. And one of the things he points out in the most recent column is the X Proto Lab, which I don't think you've talked about on the show before.
No, I don't think so.
So this the only reason I bring this up is because I actually have one. So it's just a little bit bigger than a postage stamp sized oscilloscope.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So
apparently, I think they sent one to Chris.
Okay. So
he got one.
I actually had to pay for mine.
Right.
But,
okay.
The local hackerspace here in Austin put together a group order, and I don't think they're doing this anymore, but for a while, if you bought 10, you could get them for $35 each. And it's this beautiful little OLED display. It's super cool. I mean, just... and it's got a rudimentary, obviously low bandwidth, low performance.
It's a toy.
It is a toy.
It's pretty much a toy.
And I will say that right up front. It is a toy.
Of course.
But man, it is a cool toy.
It's cool. Yeah.
It's smaller than a 9-volt battery. There's a picture on the site. Yeah. It's by a company called Gabotronics, I guess. And this thing has an X Mega AVR Atmel X Mega microcontroller on it. It's got a little micro USB port that you give power, and then it has this little tiny 1-inch 128 by 64 pixel display, and it's super crisp. And it's kind of a neat toy. So we got a bunch of them to the hackerspace, and we're just going to try to do, whatever we can with them. Just use it as a development board for the X Mega, because the X Megas haven't really made much inroads into the hobbyist
No, they
market.
haven't.
And so, for $35, or if you buy one, I think it's $49, you get this super cool. I mean, you could easily spend that much for the OLED display alone if you were buying it from, Spark Fun or from somewhere like that. So to get a little tiny display, it's super sexy, and it plugs into a breadboard. It's got headers on the bottom.
That's
so you can use it
a big bonus.
Yeah, so it's this kind of cool little module, and so I literally just got mine last night, and then I opened up the magazine whenever I got home, and sure enough, there it was. So if anybody's interested in playing with X Megas, that might be a good way to go. It's certainly one of the cheaper eval boards I've ever seen for an X Mega that includes an LCD or an OLED display even. So yeah, kind of cool. And I actually had one other thing that I wanted to mention before I forget. I actually have been evaluating an FPGA board, which, people that know me are thinking, I do microcontrollers. What am I doing with an FPGA board?
This is not too much of a stretch.
Yeah,
really.
yeah, I agree. And I've worked with not FPGAs, but I have actually done some work in VHDL, and I always wanted to play with FPGAs, but I always felt like they were really expensive. And you're very familiar. The eval boards for FPGAs tend to be in the usually $300 to $500 range, right?
Well, traditionally, but they have come down in recent last
that's right.
3-4 years. Even Xilinx and Altera themselves make $50, $80 boards.
Yeah.
So they're not out of the reach of the hobbyist now.
Yep. So full disclosure, I was sent one of these boards for evaluation. So it's not a paid advertisement, but Jack, I can't remember his last name, from Papilio. This is a Papilio board. It's PAPILIO.cc. He's got this little FPGA board that is actually, whenever you get it, it's running an AVR softcore on the FPGA, so you can actually run Arduino sketches on it, which I think is kind of hilarious.
Yeah,
that kind of cracks me up. like what lengths will we go to run Arduino on things that do not need to run Arduino? It's like, wow. Right. So somebody actually coded up an AVR soft processor to do this. But the board, if you buy it, it's like $50, I think, for the cheaper one. And I think it may be one of the cheapest ways to actually get started in FPGAs, because it comes with a JTAG programmer on board. So you don't have to spend like $100 on a JTAG programmer.
On a separate adapter, you just plug it straight into
plug
the
it
USB.
Into your USB. And so he sent me a couple of these boards, and he's got a few demo applications, but I'm planning to use it to play with FPGAs, and I've got a friend who wants to build a software-defined radio, and I told him, hey, you could use one of these to get started, and even if it doesn't have all the fancy, DSP features, it's cheap, and it's kind of a cute little board. It's small. You can get these expansion shields for it, so...
okay. Are they Arduino compatible shields?
No, it didn't.
Right, okay.
He didn't quite go to that.
That length, yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, it's the Papilio board, and the company is called the Gadget Factory, and it's Jack Gassett runs the company. It's a pretty cool little... He's the guy that did Dangerous Prototypes. I think he worked on the Bus Pirate. And also on that Logic Analyzer project that Dangerous Prototypes did. This is the same guy. So he's into FPGA stuff, and
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
check it out.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, this one's been on here for ages. Are 8-bit micros dead? This comes up time and time again on the EEV blog forum and every other forum I visit. People have been talking about the death of 8-bit micros for, ever since they've come out, really. And the argument is that, the 32-bit ARM micros are so cheap these days, so why would you bother with 8-bit micros? Well, there are plenty of reasons.
Yeah. And as someone who's writing a book about working with 8-bit micros.
Right.
I guess I'm a little bit biased in this area, but...
Yeah, but there are, you can't... Somebody made the argument just the other day on the forum that, well, it's only $3 for an ARM 32-bit micro, and, well, it costs $3 for a PIC chip as well, just an 8-bit, 18F series PIC chip or something. Well, you're not really comparing, apples to apples. There's a lot of reasons to use 8-bit micros. One is they are actually cheaper. They will always be cheaper because when you actually manufacture your silicon wafer, the 32-bit die is always going to be bigger than an 8-bit micro die. It's just, it physically has less transistors. It's only 8-bit. So really, the die is always going to be smaller. So the chips are ultimately, in volume, always going to be cheaper. There's just no, there's no doubt about that. And there's many other things like a lot of the 32-bit ARM micros, they require like multiple voltages to work from.
Yep.
They'll have a separate, a core voltage, might run at 1.8 volts and the IO's at 3.3 and etc. And that just adds to your system cost and complexity and
yep. And often the development tools are not free. So you've got to factor in...
Well, the argument is that they are for a lot of these 32-bit ARM devices. So, there is a development tool thing there, but you sort of put that aside just from a purely chip point of view. And the 32-bit micros don't come in small. Go out and try and buy a tiny 8-pin 32-bit micro. You can't. They're always reasonably complex devices with large amounts of memory and stuff like that. So they're going to be physically large, and one of the benefits of 8-bit is that you use them for just simple, cheap stuff.
And
you can get them in tiny packages. And
you don't need 50 lines of code to configure them. You don't need... I actually think that ultimately it's really up to what you're trying to do. It's the application that decides what microcontroller should be. And I still think that there's lots of applications that 8-bit microcontrollers are perfect for. And sure, I've seen... what is it? The LPC espresso board.
Yep.
There's a lot of Cortex M3 stuff now that I've heard people pushing, and it's funny. People make a lot of talk about it, but I have yet to see any of those boards really make significant inroads into the hobbyist community. Now, if you're doing, contract design, maybe you.
Oh, of course,
it's a different story, right? But
horses for courses, right?
As soon as you, I don't know. I think 8-bit micros are cheap, easy to use, simple, easy to understand. The data sheets aren't 500 pages long. And sometimes that's good for a hobbyist or a beginner. You want to start fairly simple, and I think it's fairly easy to wrap your mind around an 8-bit micro. 32-bit micros just don't have that easy learning curve, I don't think. Now, that's not to say that I won't play with them. But...
I would go in that direction to argue that they can be just as simple as 8-bit micros, but the whole question is are these 32-bit ARM etc. devices going to push out 8 bits from the micro? And the answer is no. It's just never going to happen. There are reasons why 8-bit micros are good and they will still survive. And a lot of people claim that the ARM will dominate the world, and it's better to go to ARM because then you can seamlessly move from one manufacturer to. And, like if they actually discontinue your chip, well, you can just move to another ARM micro. Well, sorry, it ain't quite that easy because a lot of your code is, regardless of which micro you use, is going to be specific to the built-in peripherals in the micro, and they aren't the same. Sure, the ARM core might be exactly the same, but a lot of your code is built around the peripherals built into that specific chip from NXP or from TI or someone like that. So, there's this myth that, if you choose ARM, you're safe because then you won't have to redesign. It's a real easy redesign if you want to move from one chip to another. No, it can actually be easier if you, say, stick with that PIC. They're actually pin and package compatible actually between 8 right up to 32-bit micros. So you can move from 8 bits, they discontinue 8-bit. Well, you can whack in a 16-bit or a 32-bit part in the same package, in the same pinout, with the same names for the peripherals, and, there's very little you have to do. So, yeah, I wouldn't be falling for that one anytime soon. Anyway, there's a whole talk about it on the forum if you want to check it out. So I think that's a bit of a myth, that ARM is, the safe... Well... it's a fairly safe option, but it's not any safer than sticking with a single big company like, Atmel or PIC or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. We could argue the various merits of 8 and 32-bit until the cows come home. But
they're certainly not going away anytime soon. That's for sure. Yeah, they're going to be around for a while.
Absolutely. Well, I think they'll be around forever until magically the die size is exactly the same, really. Because if you're making, 1 million of something or 10 million of something and you only want to do one specific little task, well, you're not going to stick in a 32-bit ARM chip with that big die. You're just going to put in, the 8. Heck, you can even still buy 4-bit micros, I think. But that's going a bit... Wow. That's going a bit too far. So... Anyway, just quickly, our time's up, but we've probably got time for one more. Chris, I put this on the list. I told Chris the other week that these headhunting consulting, agencies, these job agencies, they actually charge, typically here in Australia anyway, 20 to 30% of your first year's salary for finding you that job. They don't charge you that, but they charge the company that. So if your job's worth $100,000 a year, they're going to take $20,000 to $30,000 fee just for getting you that job.
This does not surprise me.
He was staggered. Chris was staggered by it. So what's the thing in the US? Do you have any idea?
I actually don't know what the numbers are. I have not worked with a headhunter, and even if I had, I doubt they would tell me
right, okay.
how much of my salary they were getting. But I've definitely heard that they get a sizable chunk of your first year salary. Yep. So 20 to 30% sounds perfectly reasonable to me. And I think that's part of why people get into difficult situations with headhunters sometimes. I actually had a coworker that had an experience very early in my career where she had talked to a headhunter and ended up independently contacting a company that the headhunter claimed that he had told her about a position, and he ended up suing the company that hired her, looking for, because 20 to 30% is a sizable chunk of change, and I think in the end he didn't get anything, but it's a real problem because these guys, if you think about it, if they place just a few people a year, they get the equivalent of what an engineer is getting for their salary. So they could potentially get a lot of money.
Absolutely, and that's why they'll try and push you into any job they can.
And that's why they hound you too. There have definitely been points in my career when I've received calls regularly, like on almost a weekly basis from. And it's interesting because in certain industries you'll have headhunters which specialize in those industries. So whenever I was working in RF design, I used to have like the same set of guys used to call me all the time, and it's funny because they would call everyone in my office, and so everybody knew who they were, and you actually, that's great. And I can actually see, that might be one instance where I would work with a headhunter, is that if he's so established in the industry that he knows everybody and what they're working on and what projects they're doing, then he's actually adding quite a bit of value. He knows the industry better than I do, at that point. But
they're the real good ones. They're the good ones. Most are just
the guys that are like cold calling you and don't give a shit about what you end up doing and whether it's in your focus, and those guys, run away. No offense to
but sometimes I've done a whole rant on recruitment consultants / headhunters, but the thing is, a lot of companies, some companies will not deal with the individual. They have a corporate policy to only deal through a specific agency. So the only way to get a job in that company is through that agency. So sometimes if you want to get in that company, you've got no choice, really.
The trend that I've actually seen in the industry is that companies will hire former headhunters to work in their staffing departments. Because I know of a couple headhunters that I had contact with, whether I wanted to or not earlier in my career, and then through the magic of things like LinkedIn, you can actually see where people wind up, and a couple of these girls and guys have ended up at high tech companies, companies that are famous and like large corporations. So I think that the corporations are pretty savvy because they know that these guys are invested in the industry. But yeah, whenever you are required to go through an agency, that gives me kind of a weird feeling. I don't like dealing with a third party.
Same here. So if you know what, how much your headhunters in your country charge, please add a comment.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
Especially in the US. I'm very curious to know. In the US, it's about 20 to 30% here. So
I wouldn't be surprised if that's an industry standard.
Yep, and usually there's a minimum. Like you've got to stay for 3 months. And
right.
So they can't just place you and bang, the company pays up. Yeah. They, the companies are smart enough to know. Well, the person has to stay at least 3 months before I'm going to pay you your fee. So. Interesting. And the interesting thing is, if you know this, if you know that the company's going through an agency like this, a headhunter, and if you bypass them and go straight in, you can go, hey, I know you're trying to hire through, an external headhunter. Give me 10% more, and we'll bypass them, and I'll save you a bunch load. I'll save you a bunch of money. So it can be a little bargaining chip there.
Yeah. I've never done that.
Right.
But I'll believe it. I'll believe that someone has managed to finagle that. That's.
I've certainly done it myself.
Oh, wow.
So because it's just a natural part of the industry. Really, everyone knows that they charge a huge fee. So it's basic economics. So anyway, I think our amp hour's up. Thank you very much, Jeff.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on the show again, and it's always fun.
That's right.
And
it is indeed. And where does the time go?
I know.
We're 5 minutes past, actually.
Yeah.
Crazy. Anyway, we're a bit liberal here at the Amp Hour. We don't care too much about
the Amp Hour and
deadlines.
Change.
Amp Hour and change. Yes. And because Chris is not here this week, and I have to do the editing.
What will we get?
I wonder
this
what's
time?
Coming up.
Yeah,
We'll see. Thanks for joining us.
I will look forward to hearing what you come up with, Dave. But thanks for having me on the show. It was a lot of fun, and I always love being on. Even if you call me the same day, it's always just a lot of fun. There's always a lot of cool things to talk about. So
there is indeed,
thanks.
And we certainly appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, cool. Catch you later,
See
Dave.
ya.
Bye.
So, Chris is in Vegas, and I'm left here to do the editing. So you know what that means. I can choose anything I like. And for today, we have the Australian classic, Australiana, by Ostentatious. And yes, you Yanks will have no idea what any of this means. And that's the point.
Sitting at home last Sunday morning, me mate Boomerang said he was having a few people round for a barbie. Said he might cook a burger or two. I said, sounds great, will Wallaby there? He said, yeah, and Veggie might come too. So I said to the wife, you want to go, Anna? She said, I'll go if Dean goes. So I said to Boomer, what'll we do about Nulla? He said, Nulla bores me to tears, leave him at home. We got to the party at about 2, walked straight out the kitchen to put some booze in the fridge, and you wouldn't believe it, there's Boomer's wife, Warra, sitting there trying to plait a puss. Now, I don't like to speak Illawarra, but I was shocked. I mean, how much can a koala bear? So I grabbed a beer, flashed me wanger at her, and headed out to join the party. Pretty soon, Ayers rocks in, and things really started jumping. This Indian girl, Masu, turns up, dying to go to the toilet, but she couldn't find it. I said to me mate, Al, hey, where can Masu pee, Al? He said she can go out back with a fella. She's probably seen a cockatoo. Well, just then Warra comes out of the kitchen with a few drinks for everybody. Fair dinkum, you've never seen a cooler bar, mate. I grabbed a beer and said, thanks, Warrata. A couple of Queensland at the party. One smelling pretty strongly of aftershave. He sat down next to me. I turned to him. I said, you know, mate, you reek of stockade. It was a really hot day. Oscar felt like a swim. He said to Ena, you want to have a dip in the riverina? She said, I haven't got my cosy, Oscar. Well, Bo says, come in stark as Wattle Lake hair. Ena says, what, without so much as a thread, Bo? Ah, perish your thought. Has Newcomb been in yet? Well, a few of the blokes decided to play some cricket. Boomer said, why doesn't Wombat? Yeah, and let Tenner field. And he said I should have a bowl, but I was too out of it to play cricket, so I suggested a game of cards. I said to Liptus, you want a game of eucalyptus? He said, there's no point, mate. Dar wins every time. Well, Bill said he'd like a smoke. Nobody knew where the dope was stashed. I said, I think Marino's. But I was just spinning a bit of a yarn. Barry pulls a joint out of his pocket. Bill says, great, Barry, a reefer. What is it, mate? Oh, noose the heads, of course. Me mate Adelaide him on me. And it was a great joint, too. Blue Mountains away and his three sisters. Well, I thought I'd roll one myself. I said, chuck us the tally-ho, Bart. He said, they're out on the lawn. Seston, can you get them for us? Bernie said, it's okay, mate. She's appled. I'll get them for you. Just then Alice springs into action. Starts to pack Billabong. But you wouldn't believe it, the bong's broken. I said, Lord, how? Hey, man. Somebody said, will a didgeridoo? I said, maybe it'll have to. I look in the corner and there's Bass sitting there, not getting into it, not getting out of it. I said, what, is Bass straight or something? Boomer said, as a matter of fact, mate, he's a cop. I said, you're joking, mate, a cop? I'm getting out of here, let's go, Anna. She said, no way, I'm hanging around till gum leaves. Besides, I don't want to leave Jack around a party on his own. Have you seen him? I think he's trying to crack on Toowoomba. He's already tried to Mount Isa. And he'll definitely try to lead you, Australiana. Thank you, and good night.